Good morning, folks. Welcome to Coffee with Artists. My name is Rachel Wilkins. Delighted to be here this morning. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and joining us on this beautiful Friday morning, which is, in fact, Friday evening or Friday very late at night for our guest this morning. I have the wonderful Peter Ryan joining me. Peter is in Perth, Australia. He is a contemporary artist and storyteller. Welcome, Peter. It's great to have you here this morning.
Hi, Rachel. It's pretty cool to be here. I said we're about to flip over onto Saturday here, so we'll not squeeze it in last thing on the week. Yeah.
Yeah. So Peter and I have met because Peter's in one of my programs, and often our coaching calls are at what is 2 a.m. in the morning for him, 1 p.m. here in the US. So you're a trooper for staying up late. So I really appreciate
Yeah, I'll admit they were tough sometimes getting up and having that alarm go off, but no, once I was in there, it was great. Yeah.
That's amazing. So, I mean, a lot to talk about today. You know, you have this beautiful, beautiful work. We're going to talk a lot about, the process and the subjects of your work. But what I want to do first is just go way, way back. You grew up in Perth. You said you were supported as a youngster when you were kind of finding your feet and discovering that you had this desire to be creative. Can you talk a little bit about those early days?
Yeah, I can't remember exactly how young I was. I remember at least year 2 or 3, as in school years, so maybe about 7 or 8. And I didn't get all the best art gear, but what we had was cartoons, and I just had a blank bit of pencil and a paper. And I think that cartoons were my first love. So I used to, not just get the joy from watching a cartoon, but I used to be in awe of these artists that could draw like a Bugs Bunny kind of thing. And I spent hours just trying to perfect that kind of art. And support came from sort of parents where whenever there's a family gathering, they'd always like, oh, Pete, go grab all your work and show all the aunties and uncles and everything like that. So they're all sort of passing it around. And I guess I thought it's just the usual thing when kids have got pictures. But then at school, I guess I compared my stuff to others and realized, what, I was kind of doing a bit better than them. And whenever there was a swimming carnival on and we got to draw a front cover, I was always chosen every year without fail. And so I kind of had a lot of support then at school, and I was always the art kid at my sort of school growing up throughout. Yeah.
Are you from a creative family, or do you have siblings or
no,
creative?
I think I surprised them all. None of them have got a creative bone in their body. So not going through the grandparents and everyone. Yeah, no, I think it's just me. So yeah.
That's awesome. So you talked about you and I have talked briefly about the animation work that you would do. That was kind of a passion in those early days. You had the pleasure of working with a Disney scriptwriter when you were in college. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, I went on to do my parents are supportive of art anyway, and even in high school I did some really nice oil paintings, but they pushed me into sort of going, oh, go graphic design and using computers and all these things because you'll get a better job. And I don't disagree, and I'm kind of glad I went down that path because I learned a lot of other things, but I still had that creative kind of bone in my body, and I got work doing visualizations because in Perth we're a big mining kind of town. So that's where a lot of the jobs were at if you didn't want to fly away. And working at these companies, I sort of got into trying to find other ways to be creative before I started getting into art again. And I did a lot of script writing because I still love storytelling. And back when I was at uni, I got into 3D animation. It was that era of Shrek and when all these things were coming out. And I found, okay, well, maybe I can get into just doing my storytelling and fulfill that passion. And yeah, I went to a course that was run by Jim Magan. So he's from LA, and he was the guy that created Gummy Bears and DuckTales and all those kinds of things. So I led into that, and so I wrote some scripts and then put them to other places along the way. And I guess where I found out is that although I was being creative that way and I was getting my storytelling kind of sort of vibe out there, I guess, but it wasn't leading anywhere. And all that was happening is I was kind of just shelving these stories in a file somewhere else to be sort of hidden. So I kind of thought, oh, maybe I'll start painting again. And I at least if I didn't sell the painting, or it didn't go anywhere. I just put something on my walls to look good. And that's how I guess the sort of evolution came from uni, storytelling, script writing, back to painting. And what I did was, when I finally sort of thought, okay, I'm gonna start painting, I'm gonna put one out there into one of these. I think the first one was like a Christmas show in just my local kind of art community type sort of thing. And I thought, oh, before I do that, I'll take I took terrible photos. Always bad at photography, but I didn't like the photo I took, so I thought, oh, I just need to take it to a place that will digitize it better for me. I don't mind paying for it. I'd spent this time creating one painting after 10 years of not doing anything. And then what happened was I dropped it off, went to pick it up again, and they printed it out, mounted it, packaged it up, and they had it ready for me when I got there, and they said, oh, you could sell these. And that was like one of the starting points for me to start being, I guess, getting into art and being, what's the word? People, I'm trying to think of, when you're sort of selling prints and getting down that path, rather than sort of going down the heavy original sales, I was kind of more into, I'll get in sort of a different way and start introducing my work with lower priced prints that I can sort of pep around the place, because I was still working full time and I just had a kid, so I didn't have a lot of time to donate to painting. But if I did one or two or three, and then I had prints, I could sort of siphon them out and get them out there. Yeah.
That's awesome. You talked about kind of being in this digital space for like a decade, right? And then revisiting painting. So I have two questions there. What made you abandon painting first and foremost and focus primarily on the digital? And what do you think, now that you kind of have gone back to really where it seems where your heart is, with a paintbrush, what do you feel a painting gives you that perhaps the digital medium can't?
Well, I think the reason I sort of hadn't done it for so long, it could have been age, but I was always a slow painter. My paintings they're oil paintings. That's what I loved about oil paintings, because I could take my time with them. And even back in high school, when I first started doing oil paintings in year 12, so I was like 17, and I used to have, like, mum let me have days off school because I'd have this huge oil painting, and I was so slow, and I have tiny brushes, and I'd be sitting there just doing this dabbing thing forever. And so she gave me days off school just to finish my paintings. And then I did a few after that, but I realized I'm just too slow. I was kind of just, it took too long, and I love that end result. So I love that kind of end product, but I just kind of thought, oh, it's just too much work to get there. And money's nice too. So likewise, I got jobs and got busy, and then met someone and got married, and all these other kind of things just took into that time frame. But what was kind of nice, I guess, about my evolution was that even though I wasn't painting and doing physical artwork, I was still learning a craft, because my design sort of background in layout and color and style, and then going into the 3D visualizations, where I was actually visiting kind of, Australian rural sites, taking photos, turning these into 3D artworks on the computer. It was still lighting and playing with color, and I was still kind of getting a bit of creative, where you'd set colors up and set shadows up and set all those sort of things up. So it was kind of like a bit of a digital painting, because it still had a bit of a style to it, and it was kind of mine. And so when I did start painting again, whether it was my skill or my style, it really evolved within like 10 years of not painting to painting. I just could see, like, well, that came a long way without doing a painting. So it was kind of interesting that how all those lessons from all those other different mediums still helped create my sort of style, and still helped just evolve it over those years. And I think to sort of go around to that passion thing, I think also having your first kid, when there's something about when you have actually a life-changing moment, and in that case it was when I had my first son. And I think I spent probably about, 7 years at the same animation company at that point. And I was just like, you kind of get itchy, and you sort of think, maybe I'm made for a bit more than this. And when you have something that you could, another child or something changes, I was like, I just felt that urge to not waste my time anymore. And it's funny, when you look back at all those years of not having a kid, when you have all the time up your sleeve, you spend it just watching, where we got AFL, so watching football and sleeping in and doing all these things. And it's a bit of my life story. It's not until I don't have any time, that's when I decide to push forward with something, passionate about.
Well, they say something kicks in when you have a child that you feel that you have to it's like the survival and provider mode, right? It's a totally different experience. So, on that note, you do have some children, and you have shared with me something that was really every parent's worst nightmare. You had your daughter Sky. Well, why don't I let you tell the story?
Yeah. Okay. So I had Bo was our firstborn. That was back in 2009, and then less than 2 years later, we had twin girls in 2010. So Asher and Sky, identical twins. And when I think it was just before her third birthday, we discovered she had leukemia, and it was kind of funny because, well, that's not funny, but when I first noticed it, it was whenever I used to come home from work, Asher was the one that would run up and hug me and do, she'd want to be on my lap and all these things. And then the day I sort of thought something was sus is that Sky was the one that was wanting to get picked up and hugged. And then I noticed a few other things, but it's because her legs were sore, and that was one of the sort of symptoms. And within 2 days, she was in the ward getting pumped with chemo drugs. So it's just a little simple kind of change in her personality, but so we discovered she had leukemia, and it's like a 2.5-year process, and it really changed a whole lot about how our lives worked, and just my whole outlook on a lot of things. And some amazing things happened overall, but I know which I'll get to. But the funny thing about the Sky thing is, where she wasn't the close daughter, she became so close, and we're like kind of this, we're like this now with our art and everything, because she became this massive art buddy of mine, and we did a lot of things together. And what it changed was when I was starting my art career and having that on the side. So I was still working full time, had the kids, was doing paintings, being in shows, being sort of a featured artist, getting into as many galleries as I could. And then that happened, and kind of had that other flick of the switch, realizing that money's not everything, and health is. And I made the decision to quit my job, look after Sky, give my wife a break so she could go back to work full time. She'd been looking after her for 6 months, and it's tough, you're dealing with, like, no one knows when everyone sort of thinks, oh, it's just a sick child, but it's like 24 hours a day, kind of listening to and watching and protecting, and you're their kind of shield because they don't have one for anything else that's going around. So it's like it's a lot to kind of deal with without a break. But so I thought, look, I'll worst case scenario, I'm going to be at home just painting with Sky and looking after her and do all the doctor visits and things like that, and my wife can do that. And what ended up happening is a few things. I spent all this time with Sky at the hospital, and I got to watch just how, one thing is until you think something, you're going to lose something, you really appreciate it. But you also, when you've got to watch out for something so much, you see every little tiny amazing thing a child does. And I saw some of the most generous things that she'd do over the course of that process. And like one of the stories was we went like middle of the night, she had a fever, took her into the hospital. They had to get like quite a big needle when they first get there, it hurts. And so they get this lucky dip in that they get to choose something from. And she copped the needle, picked out a lucky dip prize, and then she goes, oh, can I choose another one for Bo too? So she's going to give her prize to Asher, and she wanted to see if she could choose one for Bo. So she's thinking of them, what she can bring back for them from the hospital. And she did a whole lot of things like that over the course. And so it's beautiful to watch her spirit and how happy she was, but also her thinking of others. And when you go through that, you get to a good taste of just how nice other people are and how they can, come together and look after you when you need it. And I was always a very good person, but it really, really opened my eyes to like helping people and even in my art, sort of looking out for, making people happier. And it was a huge thing about just knowing what is a good life, and happiness is a huge part of it. And until you sort of go through that, you don't really feel it. You hear it in stories and things, but you kind of know that being happy and making people happy is a great thing. It's a great gift, and if you are happy, like, life is just sweet. So we were really lucky with Sky. We were surrounded by kids that were, terrible things are happening to them, and we just really protected Sky because we knew if she was happy and she was at home, then we're all happy. And the 2.5 years, it was a long time, but we got through it unscathed. She was fine. She's perfect now. Now she's about to turn 11 this year, and so it feels like a lifetime ago. But it's definitely I say to my wife, I wouldn't change a thing, just because I think our outcome and our outlook on life and all these things that we got out of that experience, you can't buy it. Same with having identical twins. You just get given these things, and you enjoy it, and you get to not look at the negatives, but reap all the rewards of the positives that come out of that sort of stuff.
She sounds like a little fighter. She sounds amazing.
Oh, she's brilliant. And she became my art buddy throughout it. We would just, after we'd have a treatment day, and I'd go down to the art place to pick up things, and she'd be looking at canvases, and so I'd buy some for her, and we'd come back and we'd be painting together. So she still is. She creates some amazing art, and it's nice having that little connection in the house now that, so yeah.
What a beautiful thing to come out of it, that, you totally get your world shook apart, and then to now have this shared bond with her. I know that you can both be creative is beautiful.
That's very special.
So let's talk about the work. So the work that you create is, it's these picturesque environments, but there's a commonality throughout all of these works, these oil paintings, and that is a figure who is referred to as an onlooker. Can you tell us a little bit about the process and where this idea came about?
Yeah, it's back from the storytelling thing, and even like thinking back, it's also that sort of Bugs Bunny moment. I loved the characters. I loved the storytelling component of being creative. And so when I was starting to paint again, I did a setting of like just an outback Australian sort of hill, and thought, it needs a character. So I made this little kind of quirky man up, this nomad man, and his little pal dog. So that was the first sort of set of characters that I made up. And one of the really early changes I did to this character was I didn't put a face on him. And what I found was I'm not sure I can't remember if I did put a face and then I painted it because I preferred it without it. But what I found was when I had this nice environment and this nice setting, and then I put a character in it interacting, and then I put a face on it, you're drawn to the face for the answers, and you're drawn for, is he happy? Is he sad? What's he doing? And so before I had that face on, it just felt like it was balanced, So I had like this sort of figure and his dog and his pal, and they're interacting, and nothing was really overpowering the other. They both needed each other in that painting, but it just seemed to work. And so I just decided, okay, I'm not going to put faces on these characters. I'm going to just have them working with their environments, and especially with the man and dog combo, they're what I use for all the sort of Australiana outback scenes, because it just became a little connecting theme throughout that I liked and enjoyed, and people sort of started to just spot them and became that sort of signature character, which is kind of cool to have. It didn't mean anything by it, but it happened. And now I find that with a lot of the paintings, I've changed a few things up. Sometimes I'll do like a Australiana painting with those characters, but it's kind of purely just an imagination. It's a release. It's just using things and shapes and colours and things that I associate with Australia. And in that case, they're quite prominent and involved. And now when I'm also doing a painting off a photo, like if I'm taking a really detailed photo and I'm really going hardcore with the detail in it, I found that I've started pulling them back and having them in the perspective of the viewer. And they're kind of now looking in the viewer's zone, looking and just enjoying the setting as well. So it's kind of now giving the background and the setting a bit more of a hero stance, and putting the character kind of back with us looking out and sort of getting the same emotion we are. So it's a weird evolution, but I found like these last few paintings I've done that are like that. You know, they're sort of now kind of mixing the balance up a little bit, I guess.
So I think what I'd like to try and do, Peter, is to try and share one of these. So bear with me 1 second, folks. I'm just going to try and pull up one of these because it's just, I think, a lot easier for folks to get a sense of what we're talking about when we can actually look at the image. So let's see if we can do that. Bear with me 1 second. Okay. Let's try this. Okay, I'm going to try and share. So I guess one of my questions that I have is, where did or is this the character based on any particular person?
No, it's not. It's not. The man's not based on me or any other person as such. It was just, I think it's still my love for the cartoony type world, and even just growing up, I always loved like the people like Indiana Jones or who would it be? You know, those sort of, when you've got like an iconic kind of figure that's got a hat or got a tail, got something about them. And now I sort of mentioned Indiana Jones because of the hat. But that's sort of what it's growing up. I always sort of loved that idea of the hero or of just that iconic look. And so he came about that. The dog, however, did come from a dog we used to have, which was it was a lab cross red heeler. So he was big and fat, skinny little legs because he just, you know, loved to eat and not to run. And he had these weird little ears. So unlike the big lab ears, he had red heeler ears. So they're quite small and pointy. And he used to sit in just hilarious ways. And so my first painting was definitely based on that dog. And the dog's name was Bo at the time, which is now my son's name. So it sort of carried on. And so now we've kind of kept that tradition of Bo alive. It was a long time. Bo's been gone for a long time, the dog. But yeah. And yeah, so that picture we're looking at there, that first one was called just Cat and Peaches. That was what's interesting about that one, and even the one before it, which was called the apple tree. If you click other way,
this one, right?
This one, okay. So this is an interesting one. This was a fruit tree series, and the reason I was sort of just chatting about it because it's to do with that sky thing is usually my paintings they are a bit more directional, like as in I've got a sketch, I've got an idea, I've had something, and I've actually spent a lot of time preparing it and designing it, and whether it's a pencil drawing or now I'm using the iPad a lot. This particular one was actually done probably like a few days after Sky finished her treatment. So it was one of the times, and I was at our happiest kind of thing because we were finally out of this tunnel that we'd been in for so long. And now we didn't have to worry about her health or her levels. When I say levels, it's like her blood levels. So in case she's prone to a lot of sickness or whatever, but she'd now stopped the chemo. Her health was going back. And this was one of the first times I just put a canvas out in this new sort of outdoor area that we had built and just painted without knowing what was going to come about it. And it's very strange for me. And this is what sort of came out of it. I was just messing with colors I hadn't used before, and I created this apple tree. Originally had this little man in there, and he kind of looked like lonely, so I popped a little girl with him, or it was actually, you know, a lady. But so I popped them together, and then after that, I painted the next one which I had up, which was Cat and Peaches. So that was that orange-based one.
Let's see if we can get there.
So it was just next door. If you go up, yeah, that one.
This one right here?
No, close that one. Sorry, down to the orange one. So that one, that's done. So then I did that one next, and that then steamrolled into that year's new series, which was called the Fruit Trees. So every tree was based on a fruit or a play on words of a fruit, and it was this story of this couple kind of developing a friendship going, you know, and we had like the next one was sweet and sour, they're on a lemon tree, and then it went to blueberry winter. So they're all kind of seasonal and fruit based, and then we had perfect pear and Newton's orange. And so I was kind of just enjoying like playing with fruits and words and all these things, and it all steamed out, you know, rolled from that one painting the apple tree, just from being, you know, ultra happy and it's just after Christmas and summer, and yeah, it's just a nice sort of additional, I guess, bonus prize that came out of that period.
So it sounds, as you're sharing, that there is an element of, well, from what I'm taking away, and correct me if I'm wrong, but there is an autobiographical element to this character that appears throughout. It seems like there's little pieces of Peter.
Yeah, and for years I just painted. I kind of thought I was one of those sort of not amateur but imitation artists, where I was just I'm just doing things that I think look good, and people seem to enjoy it as well, and it's buying. And over the years I've sort of realised that even without knowing, I'm whacking layers in that I kind of didn't realise I put there, but just because you can't help, I guess, not but just put part of yourself into paintings when you're doing it, even if you're not intentionally doing it. And so when I look back on some of the paintings, yeah, I can definitely see, oh, that's why I did it then, and that's why that was there. And I mean, I've painted hundreds of paintings over the years. I talked about how slow I was before. I've gotten a lot quicker, but I still am a slow painter compared to a lot. But yeah, it is interesting to kind of, when you do look back and you see certain series, and especially my Bright Tail series. So I've got like, it's a bit like this fruit tree series, where it's, unlike the man and dog, the Bright Tail series probably aren't on these rows. These is an older sort of selection of paintings.
Maybe on Shop?
Yeah, if you go to Shop's a lot more up to date, because it makes money. So like, look at that. Click on the maybe the loose thread kind of thing. That one there. So that picture that was done this year, but it's from this Bright Tails, which is sort of, it's not bright colours, emotions. It might be trying to go into the shop, but it might just be a slow.
Oh, there we go. Okay.
So there's a bit of a picture of it. Yeah, that character there is actually based on the sky. So Loose Threads is just a little. I called it that because I kind of used her character again. I'm sort of bringing her back into like that connection of the start of the year. I was still sort of like, I think it was because doing your course, I was kind of looking back on things and thinking about, what drives my art, and all those types of questions I started sort of raising as I was going through things. And then it did come back to, because a lot of what changed was about sky. So I had this sort of idea of these loose threads, because it's just, that is important, that event and what came from it. And so all these Bright Tail series, they've all got these little connections with people. And one of the other ones, if you do find it, it's called Glimmer, but it might be, if you're going to go back into Shop, because it's kind of an interesting one where I did a different reaction I didn't really expect. But go down, and or maybe actually probably quicker to type and go up to scroll up and click in search and just put Glimmer. We'll see if we can find that picture.
I would love to know how is it one of these?
There we go. Yeah, those three, any of those three there, the pictures. Yeah, if you click on that, it will show a. Let's have a look, see if there's a long one there. So this one caught a lot of people's attentions. I had an exhibition in 2019, and it was the Bright Tails exhibition, and that's when I painted Glimmer. And I bought two long canvases to paint. And this one, it's again storytelling. It wasn't supposed to be ultra dark or deep, but I just sort of had this idea of a couple apart and having some bright trees in between them. And originally it was going to be all bright trees. And as I was painting it up and testing things, I liked the idea of a blue and just a little pop of color. And that's the pop of colors where the Glimmer title came from, where it's just this hint of there's something still there kind of thing. Now, again, I just did it because I think, it's a nice little concept. So the couple, they're apart, they're separated by these trees. In the exhibition, that got more people looking and watching it than any other painting. And everyone sort of said, I like Glimmer. They didn't kind of know why. It just felt like hope, Like I think people my auntie was having a hard time with her son at the time, and they both happened to be at the exhibition supporting me, and they hadn't talked for a while, and that kind of spoke to them as well. And then when it didn't sell at the exhibition, but later in the gallery, someone came to buy it, and then they looked at it, thought about it, it sold. They came back and they were devastated because they said, oh, it just reminded me of our partners who had some hard times, were really good again. And they said, oh, we just loved Glimmer. Can you do another one like that? And I said, well, actually, I had a second sketch that I didn't get around time to doing. So I had the 2 canvases and I had the second sketch. And the second sketch was the 2 couple together. And then the coloured trees on the outside. So I always have a sort of sometimes a running theme where I have 2 or 3 pictures or paintings that will actually tell a further tale. And so I painted that up for them and called it Glow. And then she bought that and was stoked. So yeah.
Story. That's so awesome. I mean, you've shared with me before, like some of the reactions that you get from this work are really powerful and surprising. People often take their own interpretation of your work. What have been some maybe other stories that you could share about that?
The most surprising ones are the ones that I never even thought of myself. And at a recent exhibition, I had a painting called, it's called Upside Down. And it would be in that shop somewhere as well. And it's, it was the reason I painted them was because I used to do a lot of sketches where when I first started doing sketches, they were black and white. And then I just did a pop of color on there because I thought it looked too boring. And so it became one of my signature kind of pieces that were like a cheaper piece because it was just a sketch. And so I did a couple of paintings where they were...
Is this the one?
Yes, that's the one. So, and with a little section of color. And so what might be hard to see is the man's up on the color rock at the top looking down. So the title's upside down and the dog's at the bottom. And in this exhibition, it was for the Blue Tree Project, which is for a suicide awareness event that I did last year. And a guy was looking at it and he goes, oh, this is amazing, this piece. It tells me about society where it's the dog's down in the black and white. He's sort of been left behind. He's looking up at where he can't reach, and the man's up in old success and he's up sort of looking down on the dog, and neither of them are happy, but they're separated due to this, status, and he was telling me all this stuff about this painting, and I was like, do you know what? I get it. But at the time I just painted it and I kind of didn't see it that way. But and even the title Upside Down kind of works with that theme, what he got out of that painting. So that was a kind of nice surprise and blew me away. It even gave me more appreciation for my own work, just seeing that. And I was like, oh, do you know what? Yeah, you're kind of right. I didn't do it. It was just drawn and painted, but he was spot on. It did have that whole feel about it of what he drew from it. So yeah, I do get that a lot. I get people that sit there looking at paintings all the time, and there was another one called A Beautiful Seed, and it had a little girl in it, and she's looking at just this big bright tree, but it's all purple, and I have a lot of reaction from that one as well. And a few years ago, the real story behind it, to be honest, and when we find it. Beautiful Seed, like SEED. So I'll tell you my story behind it, and then I'll tell you what the this person that came and talked to me about that they bought the print. So that's the one. Now this is my sort of like this. When we found out we're having twins, I kind of had this idea that something might go wrong. This is before they were born. And in this painting, up the top of that tree, there's a little cross. It's really hard to see, and probably people don't even know it's there unless I tell them, but there's a little cross. And so Beautiful Seed was just, I scribbled it at work one day. I had this kind of worry, something happening. And so it's a bit of a melancholy piece where the idea was that, the worry was we lost one of the twins, and then a tree got planted in its place. And so as that girl grew, this tree was growing as well. And that's what I was calling A Beautiful Seed. the lady that was telling me about it, she had just recently gone through a divorce, and she saw this picture at this little boutique kind of gift store out in the hills, and where I was doing an art show, and she said, I bought it and I've got it in my house, and I just recently separated, and to me, I look at it every day and it just brings me hope as well. And so she got something else drawn from that seed of hope, and she was telling me a whole, other parts of the story. I'm trying to go from a memory because it's about 3 or 4 years ago now. But again, it's really it makes me really proud, when people just have that reaction and they get so much from an artwork, and especially one this was done a fair few years ago. But to know that all these older pieces are still resonating with people, and new people are seeing them and getting joy, and you kind of find like that's it makes me feel like I've sort of figured out what my gift is to people. It's to sort of try and bring them joy. Like it's sometimes they might be a bit of a darker painting, but I still, even my sort of slightly darker paintings, they're coming from a place of sort of inspiration and coming from a sense of hope and brighter days kind of mentality, rather than sort of dark and deep and sad. So I definitely want, when my pieces are on people's walls, that it gives them a smile, not a sadness.
Well, I certainly think that you're accomplishing that, and it's amazing that something where you've kind of set out with a very clear emotion that you're putting into the piece can evoke something totally different to the audience. And I think that's one of the most exciting things about being an artist, right? It's like putting that part of yourself out there and then waiting to hear how people interpret that.
Yeah. It's really cool when you do sometimes I will do a painting and I'm not sure about it, like the title, so I will put it online, and sometimes it's just a quirky, funny kind of thing. But it is interesting when you put one on that. Again, one of them was Newton's Orange from that fruit tree series, and I did that sketch when it was same just finishing up that Sky area. We actually got to make a wish holiday, and we got to fly to meet Batman, because that was another cool thing. I got to get Sky into superheroes. So she had Make-A-Wishes to meet Batman. So we flew over to Gold Coast. And then on that flight, I had my sketchbook and I was designing up all the other drawings and things for the fruit tree was going to be the exhibition. And I painted those paintings. So I did the drawings on that holiday. So it was good times, really happy and everything. I think it was on the flight that I was drawing that one. And then it turned to a painting, and I was trying to figure out the name because they're all orange themed. And I ended up calling Newton's Orange because it was, the Newton's apple, the drop that it's got orange lying on the ground and the couple are down there. And I just painted them like how I sketched them at the time. But so many people commented on Facebook about it, saying, oh, call it this and call it that. And they were getting really serious kind of, they look devastated. They look like they're breaking up. They look like they're this, they look like they're that. They're kind of like, and then other people were totally flipped, and they like, oh, lovey-dovey kind of thing. So I just did it as a force of attraction kind of thing, like Newton's Orange. So the force might be propelling or bringing forward. But yeah, I was kind of surprised about just how many people really just were fixated on the story that was going on between the couple in that one. It's interesting. Yeah.
It's so interesting. What does your process look like? Are you somebody that, thinks about an idea for some time, kind of sketches it out and then takes it to the studio, or do you just go to the studio and see what manifests?
This is where I kind of think I'm not sure if I've got a proper process.
You have a big body of work, right? You have a lot of work.
Yeah. And a lot of the time it is still a sketch first, but sometimes the sketch can be so just rubbish that it's literally I have woken up in the middle of the night and just scribbled something out, and the next day I sort of painted and turned into it was just the shape. Like one of them was what was it called, Little Red, and it was just a hill, and I just had this picture of this crevice and a little walkway bridge going across, and so it's just that's all I really had. And then I turned it into putting Little Red Riding Hood on one side and a house on the other, and making that this scary bridge to kind of get to the other side. And So it was from that. But yeah, sometimes it could be colors. Sometimes I'm just
Mm.
looking around and I see a bunch of color combos, and that's what starts the idea. And I just draw them down, and or get my pencils out and scribble down those set of colors. And then I think, oh, where does that make me feel like? Does that like feel like a sunset? Does it feel like a this? And I might draw something to do with that. Sometimes it is definitely just being at a place and I take a really nice photo for the man and dog type Australian series. That can be all it is. I'm at a nice site and I take a bunch of photos, and then I just take them down and figure out where would I put this man and dog if that was me or something sitting in that site. Where would I go? What would I be doing? One funny one was the one we looked at before that had loose threads. The colours of that tree actually came from the Fortnite game. My son was playing it and he was running along, and I went, oh, hang on, go back past those tree colours. And then I quickly took a photo with my phone and went, that looks like a really nice combo of like real bright yellow and green on that really bright blue background. And so it was just simple as that. And I took that and just had it sitting there waiting for the day when I had the story to go with it and using those. So I really get from lots of things. But one really cool story actually on developing and family and how like a painting can really kind of come to life is it's called, and I've got a little picture here. This is called Red Rock, and there's the full picture would be somewhere. So I'll try and hold. This is just a canvas kind of print of it. Now, what was kind of funny about this one, and we found footage recently that I need to share on Facebook and Instagram, but it was I just finished a painting one night, and the girls, who would have been 2 at the time, were getting loose out of their beds. And so I finished one painting, left all the oil paints out, which they don't dry, and I had a big canvas there as well. And then my son runs up going, the girls are painting on you. And I went, oh no. I ran downstairs thinking the finished painting was a goner. Luckily they left that clear and they hit the big canvas with all their fingers and things and really mucked up the bottom of it. And then a few months later, then my son was drawing with some pencils. We put the girls to sleep on the Friday nights. It was sort of my day to come home early, and I'd do dinner with the kids, and we'd sit and watch football, and my son would draw with me. And that is back when he liked drawing, and he used to get my Derwent pencils. And one day he had 3 colours, and I went, oh, which colours do you use? They look really good together. And he showed me the pencils, and I drew up the sketch for Red Rock. So it was the colours he had were like this. There's a blue, it was an aqua, and this real rich red kind of colour. So I scribbled that right then and there because I don't even know how the shapes came about. I just knew I just wanted to put those colours in and make them all equal placement. And I used that canvas to put it on, but I had to design the water at the bottom, which you can't really see in that one because the girls had put so much dark oil paint on the white canvas. Even layers, I couldn't get rid of it. So when I took lots of photos of the stage, you can see this messed up canvas slowly trying to eat away as I was doing layer upon layer upon layer to get rid of what the girls had put on. So that was really a family-inspired kind of collaboration, I guess you could say, of a painting. And so that idea I love to share with like the kids there when I go to workshops at schools, because it helps to explain like just how cool their ideas are and how the little things I can get from their own just unique combos are really nice. And I think like the kids do, I try to, when I go to those workshops, I try to explain the cool thing about being an artist is that you make the rules and you can do anything you kind of want. And I used to find when I go to schools that the older kids, it's always blue skies, green grass, blue skies, green grass. It's the young kids that do the pink skies and the red skies and all the kind of crazy colors because they don't know there's rules yet. And I love that fact about the no rules. And so all my early paintings, I was just totally changing the colors of the skies. Each one, this one's a green sky, that's a yellow sky, this is so I had one of every kind of color skies, so any house that you could kind of imagine. And I know I'm just going off a different tangent now, but it's part of that sort of like, I think, childhood kind of process that I just love getting inspired by kids and all kinds of color combos and everything, just because colors are probably the biggest thing I get. Well, now it's more like, I guess, the storytelling and the attitude and the personalities and things like that people get from it, feelings. But for a long time, it was just colors. They were just like, oh, I love your colors. I love the colors. And they just choose it purely on what color suits their house. And yeah.
It clearly is resonating with a lot of people because you've got a pretty substantial following over in Australia. So
Yeah,
tell me a little bit about what's next. What do you have up your sleeve? What is in the pipeline? Are you working on a new series? What are your plans?
Well, this year's been a lot of like trying to target what I do want to do next, and at the moment, what I've been doing this last few weeks, I've been busy putting mural designs out. So I working on a Pride mural that I've put in for. I got shortlisted for that, and there's another few murals that have all come out because I do murals as well. And the thing I love about murals is it's actually painting in public. For a long time, I was just painting by myself in the house, and I used to see all the murals popping up, and I kind of thought, oh, I'd love to be able to do that. And the good thing I think I do have is I don't have a sort of fear factor bone when it comes to trying something new. I'm just like, my first mural was just a wing job. I went to drop off. I went to talk to someone about a painting, and for the new cafe, because someone said, oh, they're opening up, they might need some art. And they said, oh, we want a mural, do you do those? And I was like, yep. And then I designed it, sent it to them that day. They said, yeah, that looks great. And then I painted it 2 days later, and that was my first mural by just racing around, figuring out how to do it. So now I do like to getting as many murals as I can done a year. And so part of my goal at the moment was, putting forward, and you've got to hunt them down. And so there's always expressions of interest out there. So it's not something they really come to you all that often. You just got to keep a lookout for them. So there's a few big key spots that these big murals are going on. I spent a lot of time these last few weeks putting my best efforts forward to get the best mural design I think I can. And so got my fingers crossed that 1 or 2 or hopefully 3 or 4 of them will come my way, which would be handy. So that's a big part of the year. And the other side of it is working on another Australiana series, but different to the man and dog. And it's an idea I had years ago again, but I just got deviated from other plans. And it's called The Giants of WA. And if it's kind of good, then I'm going to do the Giants of this state and that state, and I could do the Giants of USA. And the idea behind it is the cool thing. I mean, I guess most places have got these cool landscapes, but Australia's got these like really big areas. So one is called Elephant Rocks, and there's these huge rocks, perfectly sculpted boulders in this beautiful little bay. So they're massive, and it looks like I had the idea when I was there visiting, taking photos, like, oh, it's like as if a bunch of giants came and just polished these rocks up to make it look as perfect as what they did. So I thought, oh, it's a clever idea, and I drew some sketches for it. Just never got around to actually doing going through and making a whole lot of series. So recently I did I found one of the paintings I did from the Giant series and posted it online, and everyone seemed to like it. It was this little iconic boat shed in the middle of Swan River, which is in the city, and I had a giant sitting on top of it, and everyone seemed to love it. And I said, oh, okay, any other iconic spots you guys would like to see? And I've just got about 100 people just telling me all the spots they would love to see a giant done in. One of them, which I'm painting now, is this old dingo mill, flour mill. So it was just an iconic, huge logo from back in the 70s and 80s that as a kid, every kid drove past on the way to Fremantle Port and you'd see it there, and then it got renovated and fixed and put back up. And so everyone from Perth knows the dingo mill, and that was the most selected sort of option. So I thought, oh, it's a no-brainer, I'll do that. And then as I was drawing that design and I posted online, it got a heap of people liking that. So, okay, I'm painting that now. And then I find one of my neighbours' brother-in-law actually painted the dingo sign. So I'm going to try and get him to come around and put a few marks on my painting so that it sort of like connects a few dots. So it's kind of funny. Perth's a really small place. Like everyone knows everyone from somewhere. So you can be kind of a big fish in a small pond in Perth pretty easily. Because everyone's connecting dots around the place. That's a few of the things I'm up for this year. I don't know, there's still a lot of year to go, but yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Peter, thank you for staying up super late with us to join us. It is almost midnight there, I think, for you. So we should probably let you get some rest. I have popped Peter's website into the comment section. So do go check him out. If you just want to tell everybody where they can find out more information about you other than your website, I see if you want to share any social media links or anything like that.
Yeah, if you just look for Peter Ryan Art, so I'm on Facebook and Instagram, so you can always find me there. And peterryanart.com.au is the website, or .com, it'll get to me either way. Yeah, they're the main sort of platforms to find me. Social media is definitely more updated, but I'm in the process of doing a new website sort of revamps shortly. Yeah.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you, Peter. It's been great having you on the show. Truly appreciate you joining me this morning. And thank you to everybody for tuning in. And we will be back again next Friday for another Coffee with Artists. Thanks, everybody.
Cool. Thanks, Rachel.
Thanks.